Welcome to Funnel Hacker Radio Podcast, where we go behind the scenes and uncover the tactics and strategies top entrepreneurs are using to make more sales, dominate their markets, and how you can get those same results. Here's your host, Dave Woodward.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to Funnel Hacker Radio. I'm your host, Dave Woodward. Today, you have the opportunity of hearing from a woman I absolutely love talking to. She's got so much energy and so much excitement. She's actually was just nominated as the top 50 most followed women entrepreneurs for 2017 by Huffington Post. With that, Heather Havenwood, welcome to the show. We're excited to have you.
Thank you, Sexy Boss Stud. This is going to be fun.
So real quick, you got to go into the whole Sexy Boss. I didn't know how far you wanted me to dive into that, but I saw obviously you've got a New York Times bestselling book. You've got all this crazy stuff about Sexy Boss. So let's dive into it real fast.
Yeah, so because some people call me Chief Sexy Boss, but I'm going to give you the title, Dave. You are Sexy Boss Stud today, if that's okay.
Just make sure my wife knows that, okay? Okay,
good. All right. Well, I'm sure she'll completely concur. So I have a book out called Sexy Boss about we call empowering women and beating the big boys, right? So I wrote that book in 2013, and it's been a great book. It's really about my story, right, in this business. I've been in this business since 2001, and kind of my ride and wave of failure and success and failure and success. So that's really my story in my book. So I love it.
I love it. Well, the main reason I really wanted to have you on our show is you reached out you've known Russell and us for a long time. You're a big ClickFunnels user, all that kind of fun stuff. But more importantly than that, you reached out to us to sponsor your podcast and radio show, which was something I've never had. I get sponsorships all the time. People asking me about it, and we turn down a lot of sponsorships because it's really hard for us to equate ROI and things. But today, I'd like to kind of just dive in and really talk about this whole podcasting thing, and again, why we picked you of all people to sponsor.
Because I'm amazing? No, I'm kidding. So thank you for sponsoring me. But yeah, let me caveat this for a second. So first off, my background's in speaking industry. I mean, I met Russell Brunson at Big Seminar like in 2004 or 5.
For those of you guys who don't know what Big Seminar is, that was Armin Moore's huge seminar. They brought everyone in, and in the early 2000s, that was like the seminar you had to go to.
It really was. And there's somewhere out there in the world, there's a video of Russell Brunson and I on stage, and we were being hypnotized, and he's talking gibberish and I'm explaining it, right? We're hypnotized under Marshall Silver. Somewhere out there, someone has this video. So go out there and find it. But I've known Russell for a long time. And so here's what happened. About a year and a half ago, I got invited to be on a podcast, right? And I was like, sure. And then about a couple weeks later, through my website, because I do coaching for small business owners to one-on-one, I got a call and I got a $5,000 client. And so in my head, I went, we'll do more of that, right? Traffic source, because I'm definitely into media buying. But I thought, wow, I spent 45 minutes of my time talking about what I do every day. And then a couple weeks later, I get a $5,000 client. I'm good with that, right? So I said, do more of that. And because I come from the speaking industry, it became really natural for me. And so I dove into being a guest. So what you need to know is back in 2013, I created a podcast called The Sexy Boss Show, and it failed. It's somewhere in the graveyard of iTunes. It's gone. I didn't know what I was doing. I put some things up and I just was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I just stopped. So it was one of my many failures in life. And here I am going, I'll dive into guesting. And what you need to know is, that about a year and a half ago, August 2015, what's been out there real big in the marketplace is the thing to do is start a show, right? How to start a show and whatnot. And I agree. But for me, I failed at that. So I thought, well, let me be an amazing guest and give value. Like that was my goal. And I always promised that I would share the show. Right? I would promote it. And so they loved me. And so in a year and a half, almost going on, a year and a half, I've been on over 200 shows, meaning I've been a guest on. Yeah. And I really dove into being a guest first. And I use it as a traffic source on multiple levels. And there's a couple of things I did. One, I never said no. I mean, I was on the show last week about pets. Right? Like, why not? So about pets and pet people that own businesses that are around pets. I mean, right? And to me, that was a big thing of like, I never said no. It was rare I ever said no, right? I even was on a sports show one. That was interesting. So with that said, I started to learn the art of podcasting and radio by being a guest, right? So I got to hang out with people, and then after the show, I'd be like, so tell me more. And I would like pick their brain on what was working, not working, what they were doing, and got referrals and resources that way. So back in June of 2016, I said, okay, I'm ready. I've been on over 150 shows at that point. I'm ready to start my show, right? And that's when I started The Win. But quickly, I realized, because I come from the direct response marketing world, it's all about leverage. If I'm going to create a show, I want to be as many places as highly possible, right? So that's how I actually ended up reaching out to a network. They reached out to me, and now I'm on 2 networks. What does that mean? That means I'm technically syndicated. Well, what does that mean? It means right now I'm on between 25 to 30 radio stations every Thursday night throughout the United States. And then on top of that, I'm on a second network. Plus, of course, I'm on the things like the iTunes and Google Play and Stitcher and whatnot. And we can go down that road. But that's where I'm at now. It's been about since June of 2016.
I love it. I am so excited to spend time with you today on this. This is honestly, for us here at ClickFunnels, this has been a real big thing. I kind of started off this, I think your episode 84, 85, 86 or something like that. And it's been really interesting for me as far as podcast goes, because we started this off primarily to serve our community, but it's been really fascinating. As I've talked to some of our guests, I'll get feedback from all the time as far as, oh, I got a client or I got this. And I most recently just did a podcast and she says, well, Dave, you should charge people to come on your show. And I'm like, well, I didn't want that. But more importantly, what I really want to do is I want to spend time with you today on the aspect as far as traffic from a podcast, because Russell has just now finished, we literally this last weekend rolled out Marketing in Your Car. Again, if you guys don't have it already, go to marketinginyourcar.com. And what it is, we took his last 257 episodes, download them onto an MP3 player. So it's now a free plus shipping offer for the MP3 player. And then the upsell, basically you get the transcripts and all that other kind of stuff. But it's been fascinating for us to look at how that, so we closed down that channel. So it's now we have Marketing in Your Car that's an archive. And now we have Marketing in Your Car that's going forward. And so we're actually using our podcast as a lead generation tool into ClickFunnels. And this whole podcasting thing is something we are really super excited about, really trying to kind of learn it and figure it out. I've been great friends with John Lee Dumas for years, Podcasters Paradise, guys, Entrepreneur on Fire. He's done, I don't know, gosh, John's got to be into the 2000s of episodes now. Just crazy, crazy stuff. But it's been interesting. I also was talking with Justin Williams and Tara Williams. Justin and Tara each have their own shows. Justin does his primarily on house flipping. Joe McCall has a house flipping podcast show. Tara has a show where she's, again, hers is all about energy healing. And it's been interesting because both Justin and Tara, and I think Joe for the most part, uses their primary source of traffic as a podcast. And I'm so blown away by this. And I'm really dying to dive into this as far as how do you as a guest or even now as a host, because you play both roles. So how do you use this to really drive traffic? I'm dying to know.
Yeah, so a couple things. So there's a couple things when I'm going to be a guest on a show. Let's start with that piece. The first thing I did, and again, let's go back to it. I decided to learn the art of podcasting first by being a great guest. What does that mean? Being a great guest is, one, really showing up for your host, you, and adding as much value as possible and not holding anything back. So I come from the seminar days. I come from the, I remember when there wasn't such thing as a VSL. We had to actually travel somewhere and show up at a hotel room and get dressed and talk to, I remember those days. So there's a couple things that are happening with the podcast. One, it's not a presentation, right? I'm not presenting at you. This is you and I having a conversation. We're having a cocktail, we're having a beer, we're having a coffee. We're literally just having a conversation, and people get to listen in. And that's really powerful in the world of speaking and whatnot. The other thing that I think podcasting is so powerful of, it's not a webinar, right? It's not like I'm going to take you through, right? I'm going to take you through 5 steps on how it's not an education. It's an entertainment medium. And entertaining, I can be driving listening. I could be on the stair step listening. I could be, traveling back of Uber listening. It can be kind of a passive listening because it's a conversation and we're learning. That's why I think it's so powerful right now, and it's mobile. That's another piece. So as a guest, my job is to entertain, add a ton of value. And if I do those two things, those people are going to get on my list, right? So I come from affiliate marketing world, right? Even in the old days of seminar world where people would pay or they would fly themselves to a seminar room where people show up and sit in a room and all that stuff. So they would go on other people's stages, as we call it, back in the day. And they would have to give them, they would show up for free. They didn't pay for that, but they would give them 50% of the sales.
Yep.
Right? So there's still today in webinars and whatnot. But today in podcast, why is that so relevant in podcasting? Podcasting is the same concept, right? Meaning I'm giving my time. I'm giving my value. That's my job, is to add value. You're opening up your listenership to me, right? So my job is to add value as much as I possibly can. And then really to attract people to come over to me, meaning, hey, I've added value. Hopefully you like it. Come on over to me. And that's the power of podcasting. If you look at it that way, that's the power of the traffic. Make sense?
Oh, no, totally does. I love, again, I'm going to just restate a couple of those things because as a host, I'm always very curious as far as who's my guest going to be, because you never know exactly what they're going to say or what they're going to do. And so I really hope as people are listening to this, if you've got content, there's nothing better than just getting it out there and really using it through a podcast. And I think the part, Heather, you said, I really hope people understand is if you're the guest, you better pour everything into it. Don't hold back. It drives me crazy when someone says, well, the only way you get that is you got to buy my $997 course. I'm like, no. You're not on my podcast to pitch your course. I don't mind at the end. All mine at the end. I'm more than happy to have people, you can get in contact with them this way or that way. That's only fair. But don't come on my podcast and pitch. I actually did one. I won't say who it is but anyways, I ended up, Scott Brunson, Russell's brother, edits all of my podcasts. And I told Scott, listen, I need you to edit this thing down like crazy. And he called it, because it was a call to action after every sentence. I'm like, dude, no. It's not how it's going to be. So this, and again, I literally, usually I try to keep these podcasts, in the neighborhood of 25 to 35 minutes. I literally went almost an hour and 15 minutes with them because I knew I'm going to have to just splice and cut like crazy, just chunks out of it. And so
that's a good element. I want to stick with that for just a second.
Yeah.
I've had what I call professional speakers, like NSA on my podcast. And you think those would be awesome. This is what they do for a living. Here's what they're used to. They're used to and here's Dave. And they walk off and then shut up. It's my stage.
Yeah.
Right? That's what, it's my presentation now. You can leave now, Dave, or you can leave now, whoever. This is my thank you so much. Bye-bye. And so that's what he was trying to do. So anytime I would try to interrupt him, right, he'd be like, get upset. And I'm like, this is a conversation, it's not a presentation. And I think that's the difference, right? Because you and I are chatting. You can interrupt me, but it's fine. I want people to listen in and learn, but it's literally you and I having a conversation and learning from there. You know what I mean? So I think that's what you're experiencing. And I had that too. I had a lot of that. I've had a lot of that.
No, I think that's fantastic. So tell me, at this point, what are some of the main things then that as a guest, you've obviously learned a ton. What are some of the main things that you would recommend people do as a guest? And then we'll talk about having your own show later.
Okay, so a couple things. One, giving ton of value. What does that mean? That means sharing your story. I've been on shows where the topic was X, but all they really wanted me to do is share my story. And so part of this is learning how to share your story. Russell's amazing at that. I've heard him tell his story. He's really good at it. There's really an art to it. Hero's Journey, storymastery.com. There is literally an art to sharing your story. The one thing that I learned after 200 podcasts is how to share my story. Not my resume, my story. It's a very different conversation. Okay, that's number one. Number two is make it easy for the host and make it easy for them to say yes to you and make it easy for them to interview you. So with that said, what did I send you? I sent you my media page, heatherhavenwood.com/media. Okay, you can go and you can what I call swipe it. And there's a structure to it. Everything I've done is literally has a conversion thought process psychology from it, from the headline to the middle, what I do, because here's what I want to do. I don't know so-and-so. I don't know you, Dave. I want to send you that one link, and within 30 seconds, you're going to say yay or nay, right? You don't want to do research on me. You don't have time for that. Like, you want to do yay or nay. She said yes or no on my show. Got to go, right? That's what
I'm going to interrupt you here because we started this conversation before we did the recording talking about this, because this is one of the things I don't personally have. Russell doesn't have. And one of the things you made mention of is the fact a lot of the top high-end people that you deal with don't typically have. But for me as a host, oh my gosh, it was so nice to be able to go and so I'm going to just slow down and kind of repeat that link, because if you're driving, or if not, it'll be in the show notes. But go to Heather Havenwood, HAVENWOOD.com/media. I'd really encourage you, again, we always talk about funnel hacking. I'd encourage you to funnel hack that page, because she's done such a great job as far as putting a bio out. She's got a whole bunch of pictures. She's got information about her own businesses, what she's done in the past, and then actual links to download the pictures. And then the best part I thought was really cool was that at the bottom you said, you know what? Here's a request on how you can actually contact you to have you as a guest. So it's a great page, funnel hack, heatherhavenwood.com/media. Sorry.
Yeah, so great. Now, what you need to know is, people ask me all the time, how did you get on 200 shows? I cold called, as I called it, cold emailed, cold called. And most of mine came from cold call. Now, I do hire a company called Interview Connections that does do some per month, but no far as 200. I filled in the gap of that myself personally. And really how I did that was I would reach out to podcast hosts, and I would literally create a little template, and I sent them that link. And it would be 9 times out of 10, because they're busy. You guys are busy. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need you to do like a big, you're not Oprah, right? You're not going to do a research project on me. So I call it make it easy for them to say yes to you. And I actually have a course, I talk about this, and I spend like an hour literally on that media page, why I did what I did. Now, you don't have to know all that. So just go hack it. Like, just go hack it. I always tell people, just go hack it. Literally copy paste, just obviously don't put my name. So, but the concept is there, because what's happening now is, now I'm in conversations with Huffington Post, entrepreneur.com, other resources, and because reporters are freaking busy, I send them one link. They click on it, and within 30 seconds, they're like, oh, she knows what she's doing. Yes or no or whatever. I got to go. Right. So here's the concept. Make it easy for them to say yes to. And the last thing I'll say to that is, sometimes, I know for women, the women listeners here, it can be challenging on this. Here's why. We're taught, I know for females anyway, you guys are different. We're taught that we're never allowed to go to the party unless we're invited. And in the world of podcasting or any kind of media, you literally are knocking on the door. That's what I did with you. I knocked on the door and go, hey, Dave, can I be invited to your party? I mean, that's basically what I was doing. I'm inviting myself to your party, right? And so it's a counterintuitive conversation to say, can I be invited to your party? Can I be invited to add value to your tribe, right? And it's an honor. It's an honor to be listening and an honor to be sharing myself with you. So I think that's the mindset of why I was on so many different shows, and always saying yes.
I love it. So let's talk about, how do you subtly plug your program or your product on, obviously, so right now, basically, kind of quick little summary here. We've talked about the importance of, you have to have a media page. Highly recommend you guys create a media page. In addition to that media page, you want to make sure that when you actually get on the podcast, you provide a massive amount of content. Never, ever be afraid. You can never give too much. I mean, people because basically think, if she gave that much when it was free, what am I going to get when it's paid for? So we've talked about those two things. The third thing I want to really address, Heather, and that is, how then do you subtly put your own plug in at the end? Because most hosts are willing to do that.
Absolutely. First of all, the cool thing here is no affiliate link. Again, I come from the days of webinars and seminars where it's like, drive to the back of the room and, only now, and we give 50% of the back of the room and all that. I come from that world. So it was very counterintuitive to me when I got on my first show, and they were like, yeah, share your website. And I'm like, just blank, like naked? Like, you don't want me to, are you sure you can plug that later or cut it out? He's like, no, it's fine. And then, I really honestly, I do a couple things. One, I obviously just get my URL, but I'm just going to go do my little plug-in now. So first thing I do is I say, you're welcome to go to my website, heatherhavenwood.com. If you're interested in working with me, click on Work with Heather. We can get on the phone and have a conversation. But let me give you a gift. And the gift is 3 free chapters of my audiobook of Sexy Boss. I would love for you to you have that. And here's how you get it. You can either, one, go to my website, sexybossinc.com, or you can text the word sexy to 72,000 while you're on the treadmill right now, people. So, because I know you're on the treadmill. You can text the word sexy to 72,000 in the United States, and right then you can listen to my audiobook in the next 30 seconds. Boom, right there, there's an opt-in. Right then there's a couple things with the text message. Usually we're listening to podcasts on a device, right? And so that's where that comes in versus like, oh, I got to remember the website. You know what I mean?
I love that. Okay, so again, this is like cutting edge type of stuff, because I literally had this conversation with Russell yesterday. Sure. And the conversation was, okay, so now we've got this Marketing Your Car podcast and everything else going out. I was actually listening to Chalene Johnson. She does a lot in the fitness industry. My wife's in the fitness industry. And Chalene has the same type of thing you have. And that is I forget what her words were, but text this to this number, basically. And then she says, you're going to get a response. It's going to ask for your email address, and put your email address in, and you're going to get something back. So the conversation Russell and I were having yesterday was with regard to, well, that's only for U.S. people. What do you do as far as your international listeners? Because we've got a lot of international listeners. And so I'm curious as far as, how do you handle that?
Okay, so first I want to acknowledge the service company that I'm using is Mobit.com. The gentleman who is the creator actually lives in New Zealand, and I had this conversation with him at the last Traffic and Conversion Summit, which I'm going to the next 2 months. Sean, if you're going, we need to talk. I need to get an appointment with you. And right now, and what he explained to me was currently, as it's done, how it's created, is there's a separate phone number, and I actually have. On my show, I actually have the full number. It's a 10-digit number for international, unfortunately. And I asked him why. I mean, he lives in New Zealand, for God's sake, right? So he gets it. He's like, unfortunately, it's just how the FTC is just set up right now, right? So what I say is text the word sexy to 72,000 in the U.S. only, and then I usually don't say the number, but the podcasters will always allow me to say it. I just haven't said it, which I probably should, which you're actually correct. So it would be text the word sexy. However, for international, it would be blah, 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 right? Which I don't think is going to get a better best conversion. So for me, I would just rather say for US, it's this. For anyone else, just go to my website. You know what I mean? So it's unfortunate, but it's just kind of where we're at right now.
That's funny. Honestly, Russell and I were literally just talking about this yesterday, because we've toyed around with that, and the problem we were struggling with was if there was different international numbers, or if you could have one international number for the entire world. Okay.
It's one number, so it's +1, and then blah 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 blah. Right. So it'd be a long distance text, right? But so that's why I don't say it. I just say for US, do this. If you're not US, go to my website, because I give the same. Bonus basically on both locations. Now that's how I did it. I suggest do it works for you. But here's the point: if you're doing podcasts and radio, because I'm now doing radio/podcast, I use text a lot because people are listening in their car, or vehicle, they're moving. They're probably not sitting in front of a big desktop, right?
Absolutely.
So that's just a critical piece. You got to add text to the conversation when you're promotion.
So after this episode, you're going to see me starting to have text to a number to get something free. So I've kind of dropped the ball on that. I'm 80 some odd episodes into this, but by the time I get to 100, I'm sure we'll have a texting number. I love that, Heather. That's awesome. Really, very cool idea. So we've talked now about as far as being a guest, and I know we're kind of running short on time here for you. If you don't mind, as far as a podcast, now a person who's doing your own podcast, what are some of the things that you look for as a host when you're looking for a guest?
They have a media page. Just kidding. There you go. That's it. No, a couple things. One, they have a media page, and they're unique on some level. They have some kind of unique selling proposition. In our world, we call that a hook. It's not just, oh, I'm a speaker and I have a book on business. Wow. You know what I mean? Like they got to have something. And usually what I look for is a story. Not like, oh, I can teach your guests on social media, let's just say, or I can teach you them. I'm looking for, well, what makes them so unique? What's the story? Because for me, I focus on entrepreneurship and business owners, but I just did an interview earlier today where I was interviewing, and she's got an amazing e-com business. But I was really interested in her story. Like, how did she get from a computer science degree working for Apple to an online gift company? Like, what? Right? People want to understand how the hell that happened. I think that's where the jewels are. So for me, I'm always looking for, great, you got a business, you're legit, awesome, you know what you're doing. But let's talk about, how did that happen? You didn't just come out of the womb going, I'm going to create funnels the rest of my life. There's something that happened. And I think that's where, for me, the story is.
So how long of the story should it be? Obviously it's going to be based. So take, for example, as we started off, I try to keep these episodes somewhere in the neighborhood of 25, 30, 35 minutes. How much of that time should the person spend on their story?
So for me, 5 minutes or less. Now I do that in chunks. I won't just like I'll use my story inside the conversation. But a good story is between 2 to 5 minutes. And it's actually at an event I was at with Russell that he actually brought in a gentleman with storymastery.com. And he talks about a particular process that he actually is hired by Hollywood, right? The exact process of the storyline. And what he said, I remember I was at the event with Russell, and he said, quote, any Hollywood movie that doesn't follow this structure fails. And then any successful movie, including comedy, drama, whatever, action, follows this process. So he's like, why not lay your story, your personal story, right, of your business on top of it? And the other key piece of saying that is, remember, everyone, telling your story is not your resume. I don't care. Stop. Your resume. I don't care how many degrees you have. I don't care unless it's relevant. I don't care. And it doesn't also mean I did a launch from $0 to $1 million in 3 days. Therefore, you should talk to me. I'm like, well, that's part of the resume. There's still, where's the story? Where's the juice? You know what I mean? So that's what I would say to everyone is when I'm looking at somebody. I remember earlier I just said no to somebody because I'm looking at their one sheet and going, kind of boring. Like, where's the juice here, So I said no. I don't want a boring interview.
I understand that. Heather, I really appreciate your mentioning that as far as the whole story. I think it was Michael Haig is maybe the person you're referring to, but
yeah, Michael Haig. Yeah, thank you. I was looking for the piece of paper. It is, yeah, here's Michael Haig. I got this actually from that event with Russell. It was a small event. Storymastery.com, Michael Haig. Yeah, shout out.
Yeah, no, I actually had him on the podcast a while back.
Awesome.
And because you may mention earlier on this podcast, even his story basically is, the hero's 2 journeys. And It's, again, great interview. You could probably get it on iTunes someplace. But and in fact, Russell and I were talking about this with his new book, Expert Secrets. We're launching April 18th. The idea behind that book was helping people craft that story. And I love what you made mention is your story is not your resume. Don't get on a podcast and tell stories are captivating. And Michael Haig, in fact, Will Smith is a huge follower of Michael Haig. In fact, if you look at any of Will Smith's movies, they follow literally to the T absolutely every single thing Michael says. So,
I know that. That's cool.
Great interview, great guy to work with. Again, Heather, you are fantastic. I love having you on the show. I know you got a lot going on right now, so I don't want to take too much more of your time. Any parting words, though, you want to make sure people, if they can reach out to you, where should they get you, and anything last you want to say?
Yeah, so I'm probably just going to repeat what I said, but at the same time, I have my own podcast. Love for you guys to check it out. If you're listening to this podcast, you might as well enjoy another one. So that's heatherhavenwood.com/podcast. And of course, I'm on iHeartRadio and now 25 stations across the country and whatnot. And what's cool about that, I really encourage you to listen to my show for this reason alone. I'm doing radio and I'm doing the podcast. So I'm actually doing 2 edits, and it's really interesting on how I'm having to do that. So feel free to listen from a different perspective than just one long podcast. So heatherhavenwood.com. Feel free to check me out also on Twitter. I'm very active there at @Havenwood. Havenwood.
Heather, thank you so much. I love having you on the show. I can't wait to see you real soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Funnel Hacker Radio Podcast. If you'd like to be notified anytime we release a new episode, just subscribe over at funnelhackerradio.com. In addition to that, we'd love to send you a free gift. You can find that free gift at funnelhackerradio.com/free trial. One last thing is we love giving away cars. So if you'd like access to a free dream car, all you have to do is go to funnelhackerradio.com/dream car and you'll get all the details. Thanks again for listening.